Hi, my name is Kat, or the Fairy Librarian, and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be doing the role of the booktuber tag, which is a tag that was initially created by Allison Annotated, as far as I know. I've seen it around a little bit, but recently I've been tagged by from the channel of Text, so here I am doing it. Enjoy watching me have an existential crisis live on camera. Okay, question 1. How do you view a role as a booktuber? Examples might be as a critic, a curator, an influencer, an entertainer, an educator, etc. So this one is a little hard, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time because I think that what my channel is currently and what I want my channel to be isn't necessarily the same thing. I think I, at this point, don't really succeed at being what I would want to be. And I'm still figuring out how to sort of get more to that direction without it becoming too overwhelming and without it demanding more time, effort, energy than I'm willing and able to put into this whole thing. Because, like, this is for fun for me. It's just a hobby. I make videos because I enjoy it. When I don't make videos, I miss it. But yeah, I have to see like how what I want to be kind of fits in with what I like doing in like formatting and stuff. Because I think, well, entertainer is definitely one because, I think that all people on social media to a certain point are entertainers because that is always an aspect of posting on social media. For some that is like a smaller aspect, for others it's bigger, but I think like for everyone there's like at least some element of entertainer there. So I think that is definitely one. Influencer in a very specific meaning, like not in the sense that I necessarily like, I don't think I'm big enough to really be called an influencer in any meaningful way. But I think if you just look at the influencer in trying to convince an audience to do a certain thing, I think I'm trying to do that. I don't really like, I read popular books because they're everywhere and I'm curious and I read them, but I much prefer talking about lesser known books, where I might try and convince you to read it, like books that you may not have seen in other places, because like whether or not I tell you to read Sanderson or Sarah J. Maas or something like that will not, like, just realistically, I do not have that influence on people. Like, I don't, one, my following is not big enough just generally in life. I don't have a lot of charisma. Like, that's not me thinking of myself, it's just a thing that I know about myself. So like, I know there's nothing that I could ever say or do that is gonna persuade you or dissuade you from reading any big popular book. But what I could potentially do for the very limited audience that I have on this channel is show you books that you may not have heard of, that you may not have known that existed, and that you could be interested in. So I guess influencer in that regard might not be the right word, but like a discoverer, that doesn't sound right either, but like someone who can hopefully show you a book or two that you didn't like already have certain feelings about in any way because you didn't know it, and that you may be interested in now. I think that is one thing that I definitely aim to do. But I think one thing that I really want to be more that I maybe am not is I don't know how to capture that in a word. Like do more analysis, like an analysis, is that a word? To do a little more like deeper discussion of certain books. I've been trying to incorporate a little bit more of that in my vlogs, but I don't know if I'm happy with the way I'm doing it, or if it's like the most effective way of doing it, and I can't really say everything that I might want to say about certain things, so I'll definitely have to figure that out. But I do like the format of vlog. I like making that as a creator, so I would kind of like something in that regard, but I think I would want to be a little more of that, I guess. So that's my answer. I think right now I'm mostly an entertainer and an help in getting you to discover things, I guess, but I would like to be more in analysis person. Okay. Question 2, do you have any educational background in literature or literary criticism, either formal or self-directed? And if you're comfortable sharing, do you have any other education or professional experience that you bring to bear on your reviews? So I am currently in university. I'm Belgian, and the way literature degrees work in Belgium is a little bit different from like Anglo-Saxon contexts. So in Belgium, you cannot have like just a literature degree. Literature is always paired with linguistics. It's one degree for both literature and linguistics, so it's a philology degree, and then you have to pick 2 languages. There's a list that you can pick from. There are certain combinations that you can do just for practical reasons, or for like workload reasons, but you can like mix and match relatively freely. I went with a, like not the most common languages, but like if you do these languages, then like this is a pretty common combo, which is Latin and ancient Greek. And there's like a third of your education is like language 1, the third of your education is language 2, and then the last third is just like general things. So I had like literature theory and stuff like that, and narratology and all that stuff, and then within like the language specific things we also discussed literature in that particular language. So through that I do have some formal education, definitely. I'm hoping, if everything goes according to plan, that not later this year but next year in the fall, I might be able to start a PhD that is like related to literature. I went like kind of like literature philosophy, somewhere that direction. The exact topic is still in the works, but fingers crossed that that is gonna work, knock on wood. But then, yeah, I have that experience too. I'm also just, you know, with Latin and ancient Greek, I obviously have knowledge on history and culture of ancient Greece and Rome. I know a lot about mythology and stuff, both like specific Greek and Roman mythology, but also just generally like what mythology is and does, which I think is just a very interesting thing as well. I am into philosophy. Like I had a few classes that were about philosophy, you know, like a general philosophy thing that was mandatory to take for everyone. And then I had 2 classes that were specifically on like some aspect of ancient Greek philosophy. So like I do have some formal stuff related to that, but also I'm just generally interested in that, and so I read about that stuff or like watch videos and everything on that in my spare time as well, because I really love I really love philosophy. Again, that's why, you know, my PhD is sort of going to be like literature and philosophy mixed together, if I get it, hopefully. But so yeah, those are the things, I guess. Question 3. Do you typically do any research on either the book or the author before you review a book? Well, I don't really think that what I do is reviews necessarily. I do vlogs where I share my experience with a book. Just with how chronically online on the bookish internet I am, a lot of books I've heard at least something about. So beforehand, I don't necessarily do any like extensive research on the book, but a lot of things like I have heard people talk about it at least somewhat. I mean, not everything, because some I just find by browsing in the library, and then I don't necessarily have heard of them, but a lot of them I have. So it's not like any specific research, but it's just things that I have heard about the book. And then if I truly talk about like the author themselves, which I don't generally do, or like not to a massive extent, but if I'm gonna like talk specifically about the author in one way or another, I do look them up because I want to make sure that I'm not saying things that are factually incorrect about them, or like author pronouns and stuff are something that I do look up. Also where the author is from, I think that is an interesting thing, also just culturally. But other than that, I don't really do a ton of research, like, or conscious research. Typically, it's just, you know, I want to share my experience with the book. And yeah. Question 4. Do you focus your reviews more on the objective qualities of a book or more on your subjective opinions about it? I do share my opinions and what I feel about it. But I do, depending on what it is, if it's just like, oh yeah, the character development is very good, stuff like that, then like it's hard to give very concrete examples because that's like a you know, more of a thing that kind of builds over time, and it's not like necessarily one moment where you do that. But I do try to have examples of certain things, or like, you know, like I try to explain why I feel that way, if that makes sense. I don't know if I always succeed at that, but that is what I try to do. So yeah, I think that the line between those is fairly small anyway. Like I don't even know like where to draw the line between those two. But I think like I go for my own personal experience with a book and the things that I pick up on and the things that I find interesting and the connections that I make between things. I'm not trying to give like an exhaustive interpretation or critique or review or anything. It's just these are the things that I notice and that I pick up on. So yeah, how I feel about it. Question 5. Have you ever received a free book or advanced reader copy from the author? And if so, did it have any impact on your ability to honestly review the book or on how you felt about it? Not specific, well, at least not consciously, like you never know, subconsciously. But kind of when I do get an ARC or like a free review copy, it's from an indie author, like a self-published book. Like publishers are not sending me stuff. And I do think that the way I talk about indie books, I try to be a little bit more careful. Because if there's like a book that has very few ratings, is, you know, indie published, you know, like the author isn't very well known, then my impact is going to be a lot bigger. I already said early in the video, there is nothing that I could ever say or do that will persuade or dissuade you from reading Brandon Sanderson or Sarah J. Maas. Just purely realistically speaking, at like who I am, the reach I have, my channel at this point in time as I'm filming this. But what I said with like trying to showcase books that you may not know, you know, like what I say about it might be the only thing that you hear about it, if it's a lesser known book. And so I do try to be more careful with that. Like if it's a super popular book, I will rant about it. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter. Like realistically, to the author, my rant does nothing. Whereas with a small, not very well known indie person, that will have big impact. But if I like just read a book by a small, well-known, maybe indie or self-pub author, I do that anyway, even if I just bought it myself. So the fact that it's like a free book or an advanced reader copy does not necessarily do that for me, but the thing that comes with that does that. Just because I want to make sure that I don't have any like unwanted effects from my videos, you know. Question 6. Do you review every book that you read? Are there any reasons that you might read a book but choose not to review it? I used to just do like the weekly reading vlog thing, and I kind of want to move back to that a little bit more, where I would just like, you know, have a vlog that's like 1 week and whatever I read or do not read in that week, that's the vlog. I do want to get back a little bit into that, where like technically that is everything that I read, because, you know, I just want to talk about stuff. But there are times where I just don't feel like vlogging or just life is busy and I just don't really get to it, and then that's fine. Then the books I read within that, I don't really review. Like I might make a wrap up if I feel like it, and talk about them that way, like especially if I have quite a few books in that month that I haven't talked about in the vlog that I feel like I would want to say something about, or like I would want to show to the world, or like show my opinions to the world. But yeah, there's no like specific reason why I wouldn't review a book. But just sometimes, basically just timing is why I wouldn't. And the final question, how do you feel about the fact that many people now primarily consume book reviews by hobbyists on booktube rather than professional critics? What is lost? What is gained? I think one positive of like the bookternet being so big is that, well, two positives actually. One positive is that just it spreads so much wider, and like reading is cool again, I guess, with the youngsters. I should probably belong to the group of the youngsters because I'm only 21, but I feel old, okay. No, but like it just gets more people to read, makes reading more of a thing societally, than these, you know, big official media, I guess, like traditional media book reviews have. And like especially like for that younger generation who, you know, are much more interested in social media than they are in reading a newspaper. So I think that's a good thing. Another good thing is, I think, just like the variety that you will find. You know, like with those traditional media, it's, you know, more like general fiction that like would have a wide appeal. You know, like you wouldn't have so many different niches that you could go to. Like right now, if you want to read a book, like some really out there erotica stuff, there is probably someone talking about that. If you want, you know, just something very, very super specific, like a super specific recommendation, there is probably a video recommending 10 of those. So just anyone can find whatever it is that they might want. Everyone can also find people who they know that they align with on books. Because, you know, like you might not want the same thing out of a book that these critics do, or like that a certain person does, and so like their review might not necessarily tell you the things that you would want to know before picking up a book. So I think that is a positive, that you can find people who are looking for the same things or like pick up on the same things, will give you a good idea if you specifically would like a book. I do think that there is a certain level of looking for the right word. Knowledge is not the word that I'm looking for, but I'm gonna go with knowledge because I can't think of something better. Like a certain skill, that is like, but skill is also not the right word. Like they have a certain level of education for this. They know what they're talking about. They have learned how to do this in a way that a lot of hobbyists have not, which does not mean that the hobbyists aren't valuable and can't make good reviews. They just make a different type of review. And so I think it is quite a shame that the traditional media reviewers, like the trained professional, you know, the reviewers with like a specific education for this purpose, don't really get their piece in. And with them, you know that they know what they're talking about. You know that they have a certain level of knowledge that you don't always know with a random person on the internet. And, you know, like, the type of review that they write would be quite unpopular on BookTube. So if that is a thing that you want and that you're interested in, those channels will be a lot harder to find. So I think that there is a level of, you know, like a certain type of content just algorithmically doing better. And so if you want a different type of content, it's going to be a lot more difficult to find it. So I think, you know, there is a certain element to those reviews that I kind of miss on BookTube. So yeah, that was a tag. I guess I should tag people now, but I don't know who to tag. Why are you asking me? So I'm not gonna, because you know what happens when you ask me about channels? I forget every channel that has ever existed on the entire internet. Like, the only ones that I can think of is, like, Ralph, who tagged me and already done it, so I'm not gonna tag him. Kitty, who Ralph tagged, and, like, the reason she's in my brain because I know that Ralph tagged her. So, like, she doesn't need to be tagged again. And what are other channels? I don't know. Like, I'm gonna stop filming and I'm gonna feel stupid because there's a lot of obvious ones that I haven't thought of, but that's too bad. I'm gonna end the video here. If you wanted this video, consider yourself tagged. I'm tagging you now. There you go. And that was it. I hope you enjoyed this rambly mess of a video. And I hope to see you again in a video. Bye.